Moskovich.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. And to close out this day of talking about identity, if you've been with us during our previous conversations, and especially the one just before financial inclusion, we had the privilege of listening to some of the opinions that Pavlos Holman has shared with us. A little bit of poking the tiger, definitely some interesting thoughts around our data and our identity and being out there. He's going to talk to us now about a form of security, what future security looks like in context of identity. I would like to turn the time over immediately to the hacker, Pavlos Holman.
Hey, thank you. So, any other hackers here? No? What kind of industry is this? Okay. So I have a zillion things I want to show you. We're going to kind of dive into the state of the art of how some of these attacks play out, and I want to make some comments about my opinions about that and what you should do about it. So this is basically my childhood in one slide. I grew up in the cold, in the dark, in the basement in Alaska with that thing, and I learned a lot about what all the little ones and zeros are doing, because this is a piece of shit computer, and then basically all you can do with it is reboot it. In those days, there wasn't even like a spreadsheet or anything. All you could do was like assembly language and crash it. And so that's kind of how I got started. I always sort of fantasized about someday having a bigger, faster computer with more memory and being able to do something cool. And I got lucky because it worked, and eventually computers did get useful. And then they got really scary because now we put them everywhere and they have problems. These days, I don't work on security so much. I work on trying to invent new technologies using hackers is they think differently than you do, right? If you get a new gadget and show it to your mom, she might ask you, well, what does this do? And you can explain, it's a phone, Mom. iPhone, says on the box. But if you get a new gadget and give it to Sammy, the question is different. The question is, what can I make this do? He's going to flip it over, take out all the screws, break it into a lot of little pieces, but then figure out what can be built from that, right? And it's that discovery process that's fundamental to invention. It's fundamental to innovation, and you can't get any new technology if you skip that part. No one's ever invented a new technology by reading the directions. And these are the guys who are violating the warranty before they got the shrink wrap off. And so they're really important. But we've got them deployed at the wrong thing. We've got them deployed at figuring out how to hack into your shit instead of figuring out new things to do with it. So when you look at what's happening with these larger scale attacks and stuff, what's happened is, people who actually have project management skills, criminals with project management skills, have figured out how to employ guys like Sammy, who you wouldn't want to hire, and they hire them and put them to use. That's your adversary. I built this robot called the HackerBot, which can drive around, find Wi-Fi users, and then show them their passwords on the screen. This is what hackers do for fun on weekends. You guys use keys like this to open your car, right? Bloop. Well, kids will drive through a Walmart parking lot and click open, 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 bloop. Eventually, you'll find another car, like yours, different color, with the same key code. Now, giant random numbers are free. You can have as many as you want, but the auto industry hasn't figured out that yet, right? So they're still reusing numbers. Kind of dumb, right? For one manufacturer, we figured out how to just manipulate the key so I can just drive by the dealership and open them all at once. Bloop. But what happened? This industry switched from being an auto industry to more like an iPhone on wheels industry, right? They don't understand that they've just put computers in their product and they inherit all these wonderful features and things, but they also inherit the problems. And that's amazing for you and me because it makes us prescient about the future of almost every industry, right? Because we're putting computers aggressively everywhere we can. And we know what that looks like. There's no system update in your car. They're going to roll them in and swap out a part in a recall. Your next car will have system update, right? Because we're learning from that. Now, what's inside there? Used to be a TV industry. Now, it's more like a power supply and computer chips. You know, in your pocket, power supply, computer chips. In your Tesla, power supply, computer chips, and some wheels to make it more fun, right? This is every industry is becoming computers. And we know a lot about how this plays out. We've seen all this before. If there's anything you get working in computer security, it's a deep sense of deja vu. This is probably the last mechanical thing you use every day, right? Besides like a fork. And we're gonna put a computer chip in there, probably gonna put one in your fork, right? You guys use these like USB flash drives, right? Mine's kind of like yours, except that while you're printing my spreadsheet for me, it's just making a handy little backup of all your documents, your browser history, your cookies and passwords. They're in a little hidden folder on there in case I ever need it. I like to print logos on these things, you know, Equifax, and then just leave them laying around and see what falls in my lap. No. Watch out for this stuff. Credit cards are a great example that we can learn from. We know they're secure, right? Waitress can take a pencil rubbing of a credit card. This is the new credit card I got a few years ago. It came in the mail with a letter explaining how it was my new secure credit card. And I got really excited about this because I don't usually get secure stuff in the mail. It's supposed to be secure because it has RFID in it. Somebody put a computer chip in a credit card. How improbable is that? I know a thing or two about computer chips, so I figured, okay, my credit number is probably on there, encrypted, and if I could just crack the crypto, maybe I could figure out how to steal credit card numbers for fun on weekends. So I bought a bunch of RFID gear on the internet, hooked it up to my computer. Some other hackers and I played with it a little bit, and then figured out there's nothing hard going on here. I could just take the reader I got off eBay for $8. It's like the one at Starbucks. I swipe people's butts in the line at Starbucks, and I get credit card numbers. You used to have to get your credit card out of your wallet before I could steal the number. Now it's wireless, broadcasting to anyone who can listen. How is that more secure? Well, let me explain. This industry does not have a security problem, right? You guys all understand credit cards better than I do. What you got is a risk management problem. And that's vastly better because we know what to do about risk management problems. Computer security problems, we don't actually know what to do. We're never going to make things totally secure, right? If I steal your credit card number and go shopping at victoriassecret.com and you end up with a fraudulent charge, all that risk gets pushed back on the merchant. I don't lose anything, you don't lose anything, your bank doesn't lose anything, Visa, MasterCard, American Express don't lose anything. All the risk is pushed onto the merchant. That's a functional model. Billions of dollars a year in fraud, and we're fine with it because the risk is managed. So whenever you think you have a security problem, you should try to reclassify it as a risk management problem because we know what to do about those. Okay, I'm talking really fast because I got a lot to share. I want to talk through a couple of the historical cases, not from the financial industry, about how these attacks have gone wrong at a large scale. Now, we're not talking about simple, fun stuff that hackers can do. We're not talking about the opportunistic stuff online. These are targeted attacks. So you guys remember a few years back now when Google said they were going to pull out of China because they thought the government was attacking them? It was because of this botnet called Aurora. So Aurora at the time was the biggest botnet that had been created. And what it was doing is infecting computers all over the place, acting like a normal botnet. You could use it to go steal credit card numbers off of people's laptops and things. But some friends of mine started looking around and figured out where the command and control machine is. So every botnet has a machine whose job is to give orders to all the bots, right? So we found the command and control machine and then hacked into the command and control machine. Now when you do that, you don't shut it down because then they just build a new one and kick you out, right? You hide. If I get into your computer, the last thing I'm going to do is shut it down. I'm going to sit there and hide. And then I'm going to watch and see what I can trade on, right? So in this case, the guys who were controlling Aurora, we watched what they did. And here's what they were doing. They would go into one of the bots inside. So these are compromised computers. It's your computers, basically, in every company in the world. You know, there's one in every company, let's say, right? They would go back through it and use that as a Trojan horse to get into the local network in a company. But then what they would do is use that one to steal the credentials of software developers in the company. And then they could use those credentials to check code in to the code repository within those companies. So what they're doing is planting holes in software that hasn't shipped yet. So when you get the new gadget on the shelf in the shrink-wrapped box, it comes certified pre-owned by hackers. This is very strategic, very forward-thinking planning, right? We'd never seen that before. That's how sophisticated this hacking is. Just because you got it brand new doesn't mean it's safe. That's corporate espionage at a large scale, okay? Stuxnet, you've probably all heard about. This is a well-documented example of the US, which will take credit for it but won't admit to doing it, and Israel working together to write a computer virus that specifically targets a nuclear fuel enrichment plant outside of Tehran in Iran, right? So these are centrifuges, and the idea with nuclear fuel enrichment is you've got all this uranium and it's not enriched enough, so you have to put it through these centrifuges and try and get highly enriched uranium out. That's what you use to make nuclear reactors and also what you use to make nuclear bombs. And America doesn't like this idea that Iran might be doing that. So using a computer virus on a USB key left at bars nearby this place, because it's what's called an air-gapped network, not hooked up to the internet, they were able to go spread this virus into that environment. And it was benign anywhere else in the world. You probably got it on your computer and it didn't do anything. But when it gets on this computer, it looks for a very specific configuration of, I think it was 148 PLCs, which are like the controllers for these things, industrial computers. And then what it did is just like in a heist movie, where you see the guys, you know, they get into the bank and they hook up a fake VHS tape to the security camera, so the security guy is just seeing a recording of nothing going on his screens, while meanwhile out the back door they're emptying the vault, right? They did the exact same trick but on the network. Record normal network traffic and then play it back so everything looks normal. Meanwhile, these centrifuges were being reprogrammed to spin erratically and destroy themselves. So the US government claims this set back Iran's nuclear fuel enrichment program by 3 years, right, with a computer virus. That's Stuxnet. There's a lot of things that we imagine going wrong, right? We imagine that all this computer stuff is going to come to some catastrophic ending any day now and the world's going to be over. Where I come from, I have a bunch of paranoid friends, and we're really good at imagining the ways that all this can go wrong. But in the end, I mean, or at least so far, everything that we imagined going wrong has gone wrong. And we're still kind of doing okay. And I think this is important to understand, right? as bad as things are and as bad as we imagine they're going to be, a lot of times they're survivable. Yeah, there's some collateral damage. Yeah, things could have been done better. But the fact is, we reboot, we kick out the bad guys, we patch the system, we start over, and it's kind of fine. All right, now I'm not telling you can stop trying, because you have very important jobs of like, try real hard to make sure that it doesn't happen to you, but when it does, we're probably going to be fine. This goes way back. Here's an example. Going way back to 2003. People don't realize this. This was the biggest virus on the internet was called Blaster. We called it a worm at the time. And it spread and took over Windows computers everywhere, all over. It was the fastest spreading virus in history at the time. So look what happened. This is very interesting. This was never documented in the news. I don't think people figured it out. August 11, 2013, the first version of it shows up. August 12, it hits 30,000 computers. August 15, 423,000 computers, really quickly spreading. Anybody else remember what was happening on those days? Remember the Northeast blackout? This is satellite shot of all the power in the Northeast of the United States, and I think it even hit Toronto, didn't it? Went out. Why is that? Computer virus. Even as far back as that. Like, we fantasize about, what if hackers get in and shut down the power grid? Well, you know what? They did. What happened? We rebooted and we're all still here, right? In the Ukraine, again, I don't know for sure which Russian government was hacking into the Ukraine power grid. They shut down the power in a city, and they were so sophisticated about it that they reprogrammed the firmware on the industrial computers there so that they couldn't reboot it. Very clever. Took them a long time to get that back going. But you know what? They're back online. It's fine. We learned from that. So last year we had this huge, the new fastest growing botnet in the world's history is called Mirai. It got so big it could put out a terabit a second of spurious data for what we call DDoS attacks, which you can use to like take other people off the internet. And that's basically like DDoS, if you're not aware, is like you go on Craigslist and you post that everybody who shows up at 7-Eleven gets a free iPhone. Well, 7-Eleven's going to have so many people there that they can't actually sell Red Bull to you and I, right? That's DOS. DDoS is distributed DOS attacks. So this is how you take people off the internet. If you got a terabit a second, that's more than like almost any country on Earth of internet bandwidth. You could aim that at whoever you want and take them all offline. Probably only Amazon and Google have more bandwidth than that, right? Well, how was Mirai made? Made by kids. Couple of bored kids just having fun, right? And they figured out that there's a default password in most webcams that you can't change. Even if you buy the thing and go in and change the password, there's one hard-coded into the firmware that you can't change. And they figured out this backdoor password, and they wrote some code to go start looking at every IP address on the internet, see if it's a webcam that this password works on. And we know what happened? They found a lot of them. And they turned those things into their slaves and used them as a giant botnet. And then they used it for fun to go aim at a couple of websites, including some DNS servers, and they took Amazon down for a bit, they took Netflix down for a bit, they took Yahoo down for a bit, and PayPal. It was catastrophic. Everyone freaked out, and you know what? And we rebooted, we made some blacklists, we stopped it, and it's fine. I mean, kind of sucked. People couldn't watch Netflix for like 12 minutes. So this is the biggest catastrophe we know of. So I figured, for fun, I should show you how to build your own botnet at home tonight. And this is actually a really bad idea. I shouldn't be doing this. We're going to shut off the cameras because this is actually scary shit. So I did this with some buddies of mine at Leviathan, which is probably like the smartest hackers I know.
Thank you. And on that note, we're talking about the potential future state of chaos. Thank you. Terrified.
Yeah.
But I want to remind you that tomorrow we're starting back up quite early. We're actually having breakfast with Sir Tim Berners-Lee, who, if you recognize the name, is actually the building block creator of the World Wide Web. So he'll be talking about the past, present, and future of what the web is doing. And we've seen an example of what we're going to be dealing with in the future, irrespective of where this goes. So thank you for that insight.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And I want to also remind you to dig deep into your pockets to find those last little coins, those last notes, because we are starting to raise money for the Save the Children program. Mexico was hit in September by 2 massive earthquakes, 8.2, 7.1. There were at least 200 people that passed. There are schools that have been devastated. We want to raise that money to support that particular venture, bringing people back to normality. SWIFT will kindly match that donation, so please dig deep. There are donation boxes out on the tables here. And please do that as you pick up your drink, because we're going to have a chance to network, connect. And again, Pablos did actually make himself completely available for this. Grab a cocktail, join us out in the foyer, but meet us again tomorrow morning at 8:30 for breakfast with the founder of the World Wide Web. Thank you for participating in today's track. Identity is the building block of our new future, and we have a chance to have the debate, the discussion, and that will continue tonight and during the rest of the conference. Thank you very much.